For a rider that just started using slicks, what is the starting point for tire pressures? I asked him, what's the slip percentage of Dunlop? And he didn't want to answer me, right? Sure. Because it's like, that's the $1 million question. How many optimal laps can you get out of an R3 compound, for example? So you lost like half of it?
Almost half.
Really?
You lose almost half of it, yeah.
Half of the contact patch?
And maybe it was saying,
wow.
And then you have the widest contact patch possible.
Right.
And about a second, I got a second in my pocket.
I got one for you.
He's ready to enter this race this weekend.
We are here today with Tony and Corey. Tony, please tell us who you are and what you do for Dunlop.
Sure. I'm Anthony Romo, senior tire technician, Dunlop USA. Been here almost 16, 17 years now. And I handle the motoamerica races and some flat track and whatever else they need me to do.
So if anybody has any question about tire, technical question, he knows the answer. So this is the utmost authority that we have over here.
If I don't have it, I can get it.
Yeah, there you go. Beautiful. And Corey, how about yourself?
My name is Corey Maynard. I've been with Dunlop for 24 years. I do motorsports logistics, so motoamerica, work with AFT. I work with all of our tire vendors throughout the United States and Canada. And any fire comes my way, so.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Seth right here, we've been doing a lot of videos lately about suspension, tires, pretty much anything. Very simply explained. We don't go really into depth because, you know, for that, you can come and talk to you directly, right? Sure. But we aim to sort of like make the videos for the new riders who have these questions, which might be extremely simple for you, but you know, the information is not really that public. So I want to make sure it reaches them. Let's go over the compounds and explain a little bit deeper from the beginning. So what are the different types of compounds and what grade do you give them, right?
Well, so
in the simplest of ways.
So on our US, so we're talking two different things here now.
Okay.
So on our US, we have the R3, which is the softest thing we sell.
Softest, okay.
And then we go R5,
yes.
R7, and R8. R8 is, even though it's the hardest, I think people don't, you know, it's, don't be afraid of it because it's the same on lap 5 as it is on lap 45. If you're going to be a track day guy and you say, look, I want minimal headache. I just want to go out there, do my sessions. I want to ride. I don't want to worry about a tire wearing out at the end of the day. Yeah. You're really going to be a 3, 5 in the front and an 8 in the rear. That's really where you should live because it's going to last you the whole 2 track days. It's going to last the whole weekend. Yeah. It's not the fastest thing, but it still has good drive grip and it's got a really big operating range. Yeah. Like I said, you're not worried about, oh, my friend is taking off on me with a brand new tire and I got this wore out tire at the end of the day. So that's what you have on the US side. That's just the rear tires. Yes. And then on the front you have 0, 3, 5, 7. And that's, again, all the front tires can win the race. If you look at the podium maybe this week, if we get some dry racing, you'll see almost all the compounds, 3 or 4 different ones in the top 5. It's all about feel. Yeah. The front tires all about feel. And then we have some Japanese tires now that are for super sport that are made in our parent company, SRI Japan. And you only have 2 choices there. You have a 4 and a 6. And that's it.
R4 and R6?
R4 and R6.
Are these new compounds or they've been made?
They're brand new for
brand new compounds. Okay. Sport. So R4 I assume is the softer and then the R6 is slightly like medium. Yeah. And that was really to kind of just simplify it for those guys. There's a lot of choices, you know, so sometimes you'll miss it by just one compound choice. You know, R3 is just a little soft, but I know and I'm going to go for it. And the guy on a 5 beats you. Right. You know what I mean? So to kind of help simplify the whole thing, the 4 has a pretty big operating range and the 6 does as well. So that's kind of what we're going to go for in the future, try to minimize the amount of choices. Right. Now, I know you were saying that the R8 is like slower than the other ones. Well, that's only for professional people because I cannot tell the difference between an R8 or an R3 when it comes to times. Yeah. Because, you know, you're looking at tenths of a second, even like a second per lap at the most, right?
Sure. Sure. Well, probably 3/4 of a second, you know, between the 3 and the 7 and 3 and the 8. But there's other factors, you know, that the pros have, you know, the traction control, engine brake. There's a lot of things that are very sensitive to the grip level, the way the clutch disengages and all that. So that's where the time comes from. But I agree. That's what I'm saying. For most track day riders, you know, sport riders, I would go with a 3 and an 8 all day long. Yeah,
okay, now going back to very basics. For new riders, let's say they are an intermediate rider. They've been riding for like 2-3 track days. Now they feel fast enough. When is the right moment to change from a DOT, like a Q5, to a slick tire? And what are the advantages of doing so?
I think if you're going to race, you should be on slicks.
Slicks, right?
Yeah. If the minute you go off of track days,
Yes.
and then you decide I'm going to race, you should be on slicks.
Okay. Now, most people don't go straight into racing. Most people actually, for example, myself, I changed to slicks in the middle of intermediate group, right?
Okay.
Did I do it too soon? Am I wasting my money? Am I getting more life out of the tire? What are the advantage or disadvantage of doing so?
No, I think, again, if you were in that 3.5, 3.8 range, something that where you're getting used to the, but then you have to invest in the tire warmers in the front stand.
Okay.
In you've just added $1,500 worth of equipment into your program.
Okay.
So I think when you commit to racing at that point, that's fine if you're going to keep doing track days.
Yeah.
To invest in that and start learning the slicks and start learning that stuff.
Yeah.
Because again, 90 minutes is a long time, and a lot of people they're by themselves at a track day. They don't have any help, and then oh man, my generator ran out of gas.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that my tire warmers have only been on for 10 minutes, but I'm still going to go out there. That's a bad idea.
Right.
You should just wait for the next
Especially
session.
in the track days, if it's raining, you want the Q5 because then you don't have to you're not switching wheels.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
Because they can
Big
run
commitment.
that. Right.
Yes. If it's on and off, you can just go with the Q5 out. It's much
This
easier,
is a
right?
slightly technical question, but like speaking to that, right? Have you had the racers on a slick and a Q5 and just see like what are they actually giving up going from you could just ride your bike to the track on a Q5 and ride it all day versus I got slicks and $1,500 worth of warmers and stands and generators and power. Like what are they actually like with the pros? What are they giving up?
Well,
What's
I
the
mean,
difference?
so we do that with Taylor and App at the test track. We do go to some racetracks. It's two totally different tires, right? So the race tire has more suspension components to keep the shape, so you can run much lower pressure. Q4, Q5, you need more air because they're more compliant for the street because of potholes and uneven, pavement surfaces and all that stuff. So completely different tires. So I think why we give up the time, there's two things: the construction and the compound. Q5S, even with the hard center, they have to last.
Yeah.
And so here we don't worry about that. All of these tires,
Yes.
they're a one session situation, and if you get some video, you'll see after every practice there'll be two.
Oh yes, we'll
100
put it
tires
right
or
on
something
top.
out
Yeah.
there. It's a one session situation.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest difference. I think it's the construction and the fact that we can run ultra soft compounds up there. I mean, Q5 is probably, like I said, for the Junior Cup, that would be their tire, which we would consider like an R7.
Okay.
And so that's the difference in speed.
Okay. For a rider that just started using slicks, what is the starting point for tire pressures on a regular day? It's just sunny day out. What would you start them off as in the rear and in the front and take it from there as the riding improves?
Well, so I would say all that information, we have an incredible amount of information on DUNLOPRacing.com. So any questions, please go there first.
Go to DUNLOPRacing.com, you'll get it right
yeah,
over there.
And I would say minimum on the front, and these are just minimums. So again, 75, 90 on the rear as far as temperatures, and then for 90 minutes, and then let's go ahead and bleed those down to minimum of 36 on the front and 20 on the rear.
So 36 PSI in the front and 20 in the rear is as slow as you want to start it off at, and then work your way up
Correct.
from there.
Correct. And then you're going to adjust, your bike and the way that you ride. And, it's all about feel too. A lot of times it doesn't matter. Like I said about the front tires, we'll show you on the podium, just double check, or I'll give you the information after, is you'll see we'll have at least two different compounds on the front on the podium. And then it'll flop the next race,
Yeah.
But
So
you have guys
It's ever
that,
changing.
like you said with the peel, because you have some guys that pressure is 36 in the front, but then you'll have the same guy or a different guy on the same tire.
On the same
and
team.
He's 42.
He's 40,
Yeah.
42.
Yeah.
I do 39
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but there has to be some minimums because, people forget that the front tire, when you're very hard on the brake, especially here coming down this hill, you're loading the front tire so much, you're deflecting the profile so much. And they go, I only run 36. You go, well, here you're going to run 38 because you're not going to be able to make the corner.
Because you're going
right? You're
to
deflecting
fold
tires
it
so
in
much.
10.
And then, I let go of the brakes. Oh man, I can turn now. Well, of course you can turn.
Perfect.
Right. So again, kind of track dependent, and that's something that you only get with experience, or if you have an experienced teammate, that's very valuable.
Yes.
I mean, if you can get a Josh Hayes, or you can get a Bryce Prince, or a Josh Heron that has all that experience, you're just going to get there so much
Yes,
quicker.
definitely.
So, because as Seth can tell you, a lot of people will give you misinformation because they don't want you to catch.
Oh, yeah.
You start to get close, like, oh man, I'm down to 32 on the front.
That's funny.
Yeah. And so that, so you got to be careful. You got to get with good people. I think that's another thing is, even if you have the best tires, best bike, whatever, you got to be with good people.
Yeah.
And people you can trust. So luckily, motorcycle guys are pretty good. So
okay, I had an issue 2 weeks ago.
Sure.
Barber. It was a little cold. I was in an R3 compound, cold tearing the rear tire. Now I kind of know why that happened, but I wanted to hear from you guys, which are the experts. What happened?
So was that a new tire or a used tire?
It was a used tire.
Okay. So right there, you're already at a disadvantage. Once the tire has a heat cycle on it,
Yes.
it's going to cold tear easier the next time.
Uh-huh.
And so really you need to move up in compound. So when it's cold, you want to be in the 7s or 8s. And the reason that happens is that you're not able to, the top of the tire is getting all this heat because you're trying to, trying to spin it, you're trying to get some grip,
Yes.
and the carcass gets cold. So now we have a difference in temperature from the very top
Okay.
to the center of the tire, and that's where you kind of get that cold tearing or graining. Sometimes they call it graining.
Okay.
Once that starts, it never gets better. You can't increase it. Now, had you started with more pressure at the beginning, you say, look, I know it's cold, but I'll go to 28. That would have narrowed the contact patch down and probably minimized some of that tearing, some of that cold tearing.
Got it.
But that's with a new tire. A used tire, you're kind of at a disadvantage right away.
Got it. So so you said that if you start at a higher temperature, then the tire wouldn't have cold tear as bad because you can
higher
keep
pressure.
Higher pressure.
Yeah.
So I heard, this is probably wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but in my head, I'm thinking because of less pressure, there's more flex and more heat into the tire.
Right.
Is that wrong?
It would, but it wouldn't be enough to mitigate that. It wouldn't be enough to overcome the difference because the track temp is so cold.
I
So what we
understand.
do is we put more pressure in that narrows the contact patch. So you're still going to get that cold tear and graining.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a much smaller, narrow.
Yeah, it's not going to actually take chunks out.
Right. So actually, if you go less pressure, now that thing gets wider.
Got
it starts to get even worse, and you can't roll the corner. It's drive grip is still there,
Yeah.
but you can't roll like turn 2, or you can't roll the corner anymore.
Got it. So basically, if putting it in a simple way, it means that if we put less pressure, even though we have more flex, then it's gonna be part of the tire hot and a part of the tire cold, and then that's gonna make the tire.
Yeah, like I said, you're never going to get enough of the flex and enough of the friction to overcome the temperature of the track. And the problem is the track temperature, right?
Yes.
So we have to wait. That same tire in the afternoon, once we get about 35-degree track temp,
Yeah.
you can go right down
Perfect.
to 20 psi.
Yeah, it cleaned it up, but once
Right,
it got
right.
a little bit hotter, yeah.
and you're going to be good to go.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But one thing too that you always tell people is when they start to see the cold tearing, right? We tell them to increase the pressure. Now it's not going to fix what's already been
Done to it,
that's
yes.
been done, but it will mitigate what's going to from increasing more. Do you know what I mean?
Got it.
So
Got
some
it.
people think, well, it's still tearing a little bit. Well, yeah, you've already compromised the tire at that point.
Right.
So it's not going to stop it, but it's going to bring it to, we're trying to get it so it's minimal.
Right. So in order for it to not happen at all at the beginning, we would go into a harder compound, I assume, right?
Correct.
So in that case, would I want to go to an R5 or an R7?
I think they're so close
Yes.
that you need to make big jumps.
Okay.
Especially a Barber.
Yes.
And it's funny because Barber's a very unique track where around this time, until you get to about June, July, you lose so much temperature at night. That track is kind of funny. It's very unique. So what it'll do is it'll hold a lot of temperature after June, July, August, September. It'll really hold a lot of temperature.
Yeah.
So you kind of get away with some of the softer compounds. But in the earlier months like March, April, overnight you'll lose 20 degrees track temp.
Yeah.
In the summer months, you might lose 10. And so that's where you go, well, I don't understand. It's working pretty good there. But I just think the compounds are so close. You need to make big steps. So a 3 and a 7, 3 and an 8 would be what I would do.
What do you mean 3 and a 7, 3 and an 8?
Right. So you're going to race a 3 in the afternoon, but if in the morning in the practices when it's cold, I'd probably do a 7 or an 8 compound in the morning.
Okay, so start the morning off with an R7
With the harder-
tire.
with the harder
Actually,
compound.
let's go over the compounds and explain a little bit deeper from the beginning. So what are the different types of compounds and what grade do you give them, right?
Well, so
In the simplest of ways.
So on our US, so we're talking two different things here now.
Okay.
So on our US, we have the R3, which is the softest thing we sell.
Softest, okay.
And then we go R5,
Yes.
R7, and R8. R8
Okay.
is, even though it's the hardest, I think people don't, don't be afraid of it because it's the same on lap 5 as it is on lap 45. If you're going to be a track day guy and you say, look, I want minimal headache. I just want to go out there, do my sessions. I want to ride. I don't want to worry about a tire wearing out at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You're really going to be a 3, 5 in the front and an 8 in the rear.
Got it.
That's really where you should live.
Got it.
Because it's going to last you the whole 2 track days. It's going to last the whole weekend.
Yeah.
It's not the fastest thing, but it still has good drive grip and it's got a really big operating range.
Yeah.
Like I said, you're not worried about, oh, my friend is taking off on me with a brand new tire and I got this wore out tire at the end of the day. So that's what you have on the US side. That's just the rear tires.
Yes.
And then on the front you have 0, 3, 5, 7. And that's, again, all the front tires can win the race. If you look at the podium maybe this week, if we get some dry racing, you'll see almost all the compounds, 3 or 4 different ones in the top 5. It's all about feel. The front tire's all about feel. And then we have some Japanese tires now that are for super sport that are made in our parent company, SRI Japan. And you only have 2 choices there. You have a 4 and a 6. And that's it.
R4 and R6?
R4 and R6.
Are these new compounds or they've been made?
They're brand new
brand new compounds. Okay.
Sport.
So R4 I assume is the softer and then the R6 is
Yep.
slightly like medium.
Yeah. And that was really to kind of just simplify it for those guys. There's a lot of choices, so sometimes you'll miss it by just one compound choice. R3 is just a little soft, but I know it, I'm going to go for it. And the guy on a 5 beats you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So to kind of help simplify the whole thing, the 4 has a pretty big operating range and the 6 does as well. So that's kind of what we're going to go for in the future, try to minimize the amount of choices.
Right. Now, I know you were saying that the R8 is like slower than the other ones. Well, that's only for professional people. Because I cannot tell the difference between an R8 or an R3 when it comes to times.
Yeah.
Because, you're looking at tenths of a second, even like a second per lap at the most, right?
Sure. Oh,
Okay.
well, probably 3/4 of a second, between the 3 and the 7 and 3 and the 8. But there's other factors, the pros have, the traction control, engine brake. There's a lot of things that are very sensitive to the grip level, the way the clutch disengages and all that. So that's where the time comes from. But I agree. That's what I'm saying. For most track day riders, sport riders, I would go with a 3 and an 8 all day long.
When selecting from a 3 to an 8, is there reasons why, or is there like an operating range of temperatures you want to be with the 3 versus the 8? Because this happens a lot with us, like you said in the beginning of the season.
I would say probably up to 30 degrees C, 35 degrees C track temp. They're all going to work pretty good. Once you get above 40, now you start getting to the really soft stuff, a 5 and a 3.
Okay.
Because all of a sudden, that's when they really shine, and you are leaving a lot of time on the table above 40 degrees, if you're messing around with a 7 and an 8 on a non-abrasive track.
Generally speaking, hotter temperatures are going to go with the softer tires, and colder temperatures are going to go with to keep from tearing them up.
Yeah.
That may be counterintuitive to some people because they're thinking, oh, it's cold outside, I need to stick your tire because I need the grip. And then they destroy the tire, and then at lunchtime they got to go home. So I think that was kind of where I was trying to lead towards, is like how to know what to choose when you're planning for your weekend.
Yeah, that happened to me several times.
Yeah.
I was like, for the softer, because I thought, okay, let's be stickier, but it's counterintuitive.
In your head, it makes sense.
Correct.
But
now, what is the number that you want the tires to be at, temperature-wise? You're about to go into track, you hit it with a thermometer. What number do you want to see?
It really depends track to track and rider to rider.
Okay.
And we get this question a lot: is exactly what temperature do I want? Well, it depends on tire warmers.
Okay.
They're not all created equal, right? So you have a guy that has a 5-year-old set. You got a guy that's got a 5-year-old set of $300 warmers.
That's
barely
me.
get warm. And then he goes out and he says, okay, I'm at 185, let's say, surface temp. But he has not completely heat soaked that tire.
Okay.
And so he goes out and he actually gets a big rise because his tire temperature, his tire warmers will only be able to get him, say, 2 or 3 psi rise.
Yeah.
The bleeds it down. We're still going to gain 2 or 3 psi. And now we have inconsistency in the temperature, right? Now you got a guy who's got $2,500 set of warmers with the rim warmers.
Yeah.
His tire's completely heat soaked. He only gets 1 pound of rise. And so when he goes out at 180, it's not the same as 180 with the other.
It's going to stay consistent.
Heat soak meaning that the rim and
The rim,
tire,
everything.
the carcass, everything
Everything
is not just the surface of
it's
the tire.
going to be as close to track conditions as possible. Whereas the other way, you're just heating the tread and you're relying on the tread to get that heat into the rim. Rubber's a terrible conductor of heat. So now that's why the ones with the flaps, hey, there's a reason they're expensive because you can control the rim temperature independently of the tire.
Nice.
You don't want to scorch the rubber, right? To try to heat soak the wheel, you'd have to have the tread temperature around 120, 130 C. Now you're scorching the rubber. You're scorching the tread.
Yeah.
Whereas the other way, you can run them at 90, which is what you're going to see on the racetrack, and you can run your rim temp at 100. And then you've stabilized the temperature inside and the pressure inside.
Got it.
So again, what I like to see, to answer your question, is we normally recommend 90 C on the rear for 90 minutes. And that is a general rule that works good. We recommend 75 C on the front for 90 minutes.
Got it. Now I have a question. We already talked about cold temperature and how it affects the tire. Now, we live in Florida, right? So we ride at Homestead all the time. I use an R3 compound over there, and usually in track days doesn't give me this issue, but when I'm on a race and I'm pushing, after maybe like lap 5 or 6, I'm feeling the rear that it starts to like slide a little bit more, even though the tire has 7 laps.
Sure.
Why does this happen?
Generally, and I get this a lot, and we'll get back to the logistics. So let Corey talk a little bit. It never fails, right? It's always a tire that'll go here, 21 laps.
Yes.
Looks great. So we'll section the tires
Yes.
after the race, and you'll really only lose about 1 millimeter to 1.5 millimeter of tread.
Yes.
That is it.
After 21
all-
laps by a professional
on a
rider.
street bike. And,
Right.
and we'll cut all three on the podium, and there might be a little variance, maybe 0.2, 0.3, but that's about it, right? So then that same tire, we'll give it to a club rider, and they'll go, after 4 laps, it was gone. It was not gone. What
No.
the problem is that your warmers are insufficient. So what happens is you're getting these 3-pound rise, 4-pound rise. They're getting 1 pound, maybe half a pound.
Yes.
So for every 1 PSI is almost 5 millimeters of contact patch loss.
Yes.
So if you have a 3 PSI rise, I've just lost 15 millimeters of contact patch.
Really?
That's-
on the sides of the tire that are
Well, I
sticking
mean,
to the
you're
ground.
talking.
Yeah.
I mean, your contact patch is a bar of soap, right? It's generally what
Yeah.
you say, right? So now you just narrowed that up. Of course, you have no more drive grip. You have no more drive grip, and you have
Yes.
no more edge grip. So what you need to do is invest in better warmers. Try to get that tire temperature. The technology is so affordable now.
Yeah.
You got to get the tire temperature sensors. You got the person that can do all that. That's why those guys can go right from the beginning, and their lap times never change. And then you
Yeah.
see the other guys that drop back, kind of the guys that don't have that technology, and they're great riders. It's a shame because sometimes they're really, really good riders.
Yeah.
But the team just doesn't have that technology, and those other guys are just getting away the whole.
So basically, if that situation is happening to you where you're starting to slide after 5th or 7th lap, it means that the pressure rose too much 2 or 3 laps. Then you lost the amount of contact patch. If you had, let's say, how big is the contact patch?
Let's just say you
usually?
have 30 millimeters.
So you lost like half of it?
Almost half.
Really?
You lose almost half of it, yeah.
Half of the
Yeah,
contact
yeah.
patch?
And maybe let's just say we're at 60 millimeters and we lose, so now we're down to 45. That's a lot. That's quite a bit.
Like
So-
you said, the contact patch is like a bar of soap.
Yeah.
Says the bar of soap.
Yeah, so maybe
So
maybe
you
it's
lose
2
half
inches,
the
maybe it's
bar of
15.
soap.
Wow.
But so what you can do then,
Now, sorry to interrupt. Now, my brain is like, okay, then I'll go out with 3 less PSI.
I was going to say you can't. So the way to kind of compensate for that, if
Okay.
you don't want to get the warmers, is drop it 3 PSI.
Okay.
And then it's going to be a workout for you for the first 3 laps because the
Okay.
rear tire turns the motorcycle just as much as the front tire.
And you're probably going to shred it a little bit, right? No? Okay,
Because
good.
you're starting hot and you're in the afternoon already. You're already
Yes.
racing. Homestead's very easy on tires, not a
Okay,
racetrack.
okay.
So that's fine. Just try to leave from the pit lane, leave as hot as possible.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like I said, it's going to be a workout. You're really going to have to turn.
Yeah,
that,
to
you're gonna do a
muscle
lot
that
of
back
work, right?
around. Yeah.
But after 3 or 4 laps, when everything gets good, then you can attack.
Wow.
And then you have the widest contact patch possible.
Right.
So, and it's application specific, right? Bike specific. Big bikes generate more heat. Little bikes don't. We get the when we had the Junior Cup, we run actually a harder compound, almost like a Q4, like
Yes.
a street compound in those,
Yes.
because they don't hold enough. They can't spin the tire to
Right.
generate heat.
Right.
So if you put them on an R3, instantly cold tear every single time.
Got it.
No matter what pressure, no matter what temperature.
Right.
So, but again, motorcycle specific, rider ability specific, and that's something you got to play around with. That's why we practice.
He's ready to enter this race this weekend.
Can you see the wheels?
All right, I got one.
He said, I just bought a second.
I got
a second in my pocket.
I got one for you. All right, so we're gonna get deep in. I was talking to a data telemetry guy yesterday, right? Now we were speaking about the percentage of slip that it's allowed at every single different tire and tire brand. Now,
Sure.
I asked him what's the slip percentage of Dunlop, and he didn't want to answer me, right?
Sure.
Because it's like that's the $1 million question.
Sure.
What is it?
Well, I mean, it depends on the pressure,
okay.
right? It depends on your contact patch.
Okay.
There's too many variables to really answer that question, honestly.
Didn't want to tell me, Seth.
I mean, and those are all slip targets, right? So
Yes.
that's like a slip target where they go, hey, when is the TC going to come in?
Exactly.
Right. So, and again, different riders can deal with different TC settings.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that like to spin the thing and try to turn it with the rear.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys that I cannot stand any of that spin, and they go like, no, I want it to be very intrusive. when it
Yeah,
comes
planted
there,
in like okay.
and keep both wheels in line. I don't want this kind of thing.
I understand.
So, there's a lot of flat trackers here now, and that's
Yeah.
kind of the style. So, I think it's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, it's a hard question depending on the rider and
Yeah.
how many optimal laps can you get out of an R3 compound, for example?
I mean, I think
French you can get We've run,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
We've run them 100 laps.
100 laps.
100
Yeah.
laps.
And what's the decrease in like time
On
on
the
it?
front? No.
On the front,
Yeah.
100 laps,
Yeah,
easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They-
That's what I
Endurance.
run them for usually, 100 or
Endurance.
120. Yeah.
We do endurance teams, and they just run front the whole time.
Yeah. I saw that they were running at Daytona R3s in the front, and I'm like, it's like
Yeah.
a lot of laps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can do the whole race on one
Yeah.
front.
Okay. Now the rear is it more important heat cycles because like laps depend on the bike, right?
Yeah.
So how many heat cycles can you get out of one tire without compromising it? Is that a question that you can answer?
I think it's difficult because each rider's a little different. It really is rider dependent on how you're able
Right.
to keep the heat in the tire right away too. You know, if you're kind of slow on that warm up lap or you get blocked a few times,
Yeah.
you're like, I'm just gonna let those guys get away and so I can get some
Because
clear
the
track.
temperature's going up and
that
down.
has hurt you big time.
Right.
So you need
right.
to be able to, when you decide to go out, you're in an open, you're in an open situation where you can
Yeah.
get right to business and keep the tire
Wonderful.
temperature up. So
Okay.
that's kind of a hard one to answer, but generally the fast laps come within 10 laps of the race. After about that,
Yeah.
but we do have some guys like Bobier that can do the fastest lap of the race, the last lap of the race,
Yeah.
to try to make a break. And
Yeah.
where he finds the speed,
Yeah.
where he finds the speed, I have no idea. Maybe he's pushing more on the front. Maybe
Yeah.
the rear is finished,
Yeah.
but he's just using the front more.
Yes.
He's biased more to the front now. That's a Bobier question. I mean, those guys, it's incredible. I can show you some data where you're like, Josh Aaron's the same way.
Don't tell me that. I'll take it up to that and show me the data. You have a lot of guys out there taking care of it.
She can tell you what the size of the crew, the amount of tires we bring, and how logistically how difficult or challenging. It's not difficult. It's challenging. It's what we do, right? It's what we want to do. But it's challenging for sure.
So how many tires do you bring over to a MotoAmerica weekend and you use throughout the whole weekend?
So typically we bring around 3,500 tires.
3,500
Yes.
tires.
We don't go through that many, but the problem is we have to, just like we look at historical data, I have to look at, okay, when we were here last year, how many entries do we have? I don't know if half the field's going to pick R5
Yes.
or half is going to pick R3.
Correct.
Just like this track right now is typically R3,
Yeah.
and we're actually we're selling more R3s right now, but
Yes.
you could actually see where R5 is kind of picking up for whatever reason, which historically that isn't the case.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to gauge how many
Like how many of each you bring.
Right,
Also rain
right.
tires.
Well,
so it's
that's the
like,
other problem, right? So as far as our crew, we have a 10-man crew out there, and then we have 5 additional techs in here.
Right.
So
Any questions, Seth?
I wanted to know a little bit more about, over the years, Dunlop has transitioned from the UK to America now to Japan. Like, how does that look on the business side of it, and what does that mean for us in racing and motorsports?
we did start out in the UK, and then most recently they've gone back to Japan. We are now owned solely by Japan SRI.
That would be some of the new compound tires that you've got for
Correct.
Supersport that
Right,
are
right.
freaking awesome and
Yes,
look amazing,
yes.
and can't wait to try out.
Yeah. Last year we spent most of the MotoAmerica races. We rented the track the day after and just tested. We tested it. In 1 year, we were able to come up with the first 2 specs out here that everybody loves. So we're kind of
I think I don't think we can give SRI enough credit, to be honest with you. The tires that you see now are not something that they had in Japan and we just brought here.
right.
These were developed here in the United States using
For the
Matthew
United
Skoll,
States.
Josh Hayes,
Hayden Gillum.
Hayden Gillum, JD Beach. I mean, Josh Heron. We only had the best riders on these things, and it was a lot of development. I want to say it's actually almost 2 years because we were still at Pittsburgh the very first time we
Yeah,
tested
maybe
some
a
of
year
these
and a half.
tires.
Yeah,
And Blake Davis, Tyler Scott, constant guys always at Daytona. So. They deserve a lot of credit. There's a reason they're good because they got tested with the best riders on the best bikes in the United States where they're going to be used. So now our next step is going to be Superbike.
Well, another testament to them is the Kramers. So the Kramer class, that's a new class. The bikes, there was only one test bike in the United States, and it was we were able to test on it, and we are trying to figure out which tire to run on that because we originally were going to do just the Junior Cup tires, and then we had a Japanese rear and a new Japanese rear in front that we had, but it wasn't. The profile of the rear was not working well on that bike. So we went testing. We had one opportunity, I think it was, to really test on that bike. And Japan developed a tire, air freighted it over, for us to test, and that was a home run. So now they're getting a brand new tire with, I think it's coming in June for that bike.
That's the mid-Ohio round.
And a very good tire.
Yeah, and Kramer was very good. I mean, that's another thing that we enjoy. You know, we can go on and on, but I just want to make sure that we acknowledge our good partners, right? Which is Moto America, really, and Wayne Rainey, Chuck Axel, Nicole Teague. I mean, all of them are so good. We have a very direct pipeline, very good communication with them. So when we had, when Kramer wanted a better tire, we were able to organize that, and Kramer really stepped up too. They actually gave us that test bike and gave it to us at our proving grounds and said, look, you guys handle it. When you're ready, just give it back in Texas. And so they're a good partner as well. So there's a reason that, we all work together very well here, but I think that also with the extension of the contract, that's another testament to that. You know, if we didn't have all this good communication and this good relationship, and then like I said, even though Kramer's new to us, Moto America was able to kind of weave that together so we could have a better opportunity with them. And I think it's going to pay off for that class and pay off for the kids for sure.
Well, I can speak to that. I've been a Dunlop sponsored rider for over 10 years, and I've known you guys for 15. So for sure, you guys have a lot to do with that too.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we're always available. I mean, I mean, it sucks to answer the calls on the weekends or something at night because you have different time zones. Or sometimes people call from Europe. You know, we had Michael Dunlop at the Daytona 200. We had Peter Hickman and Cooper, and
saw those guys there. It was great.
And but they're at a different time zone. You know, they're way ahead, so you got to be able to be available. And I think that's something unique that we have. You know, Corey can take calls and emails and all that.
Well, I think the one thing is you'll notice that racers, if they're either at a racetrack on the weekend or thinking about racing on the weekend. So that's what the phone calls come in. You're sitting
Saturday night.
Saturday night, you're watching motocross, but you're thinking about road racing. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you go to Facebook Messenger and you go, Corey, I have a question. I'm going to a barber next week or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Corey, I'm sorry.
So Tony would be like, why are you answering your phone? Because I'm like, I just want to get this question because they'll keep coming around. So then you just forget later. Exactly.
I had a question, just as people develop and go through things, like what does the average club racer per weekend buy? Like not necessarily money wise, but 2 sets, 3 sets of tires versus like when you go pro, obviously 1,000's more, but like what can you expect as you move through? Like, how many tires do you need to go
I would
racing?
say the average club racer, if you're really serious, you're gonna buy probably 5 tires a weekend.
So like 2 fronts and 3
rears. Yeah, it's always like a 40-60 ratio, right? More rears than fronts. And I would say, like, if you're on a budget, you're gonna buy
1
2
front, 2
rears.
rears.
Yeah.
1 front, 2 rears.
Sometimes it's 1 front, 1 rear.
One front, you're digging through the takeoff pile. Yeah.
Are you done with that?
2 rears and a foot.
Somebody put their number on that one?
You do the takeoff in the practice, and then the race comes, and you're like, no, I know I'm gonna push. I'd rather buy the tire than crash. So I'll just do that.
But then, as you get to this level, I mean, if you come from there, if you're like Junior Cup or Creamer, you're gonna do 3 to 4 sets a weekend. Then you move to Twins class. They're gonna do probably 6 tires over the course of the weekend. They're allocated 8, but technically most of them on average might do 6. Then you go to Super Sport. You're you've allocated 12, but most teams probably buy 15 because they're trying the different compounds, right? Then you get to Stock 1000, and they're allocated 12, I believe, but they'll probably run 10. And then you get to Superbike, they're allocated 12, and they probably
14.
Or 14. And they 18? They probably buy 18 tires? Yeah. So you can see the progression.
I think Bryce Prince hit on this when he decided to come back racing, I think last year, and we talked a little bit about it, and he was like, look, I have an allocation of 12 tires. I'm probably going to burn up at least 12 tires. And the teams that win are burning up all their allocation. Okay. They're always on a brand new tire, minimum. And there's not enough. There's not enough to even get brand new front and rear sometimes. Sometimes you have to double stint that front because maybe that's something people don't know. When we say they're limited to 12 tires, there are stickers that they get in tech at the beginning of the weekend, and that is a unique number to you, your class, and then that they they police that, or they kind of monitor that, because if you have a 2-rider team, let's say you have one guy that's kind of not that great, well, the other guy could be getting even more tires just using his teammates' stickers. So that you don't want that. You want each rider to be, and that's kind of policed that way around the world. Everybody, it's you have this many tires each rider, right? So that's what they'll do, and you're burning up all your allocation if you want to win. Most of the teams up front, they burn them all up.
But I don't want people thinking of coming in to get too intimidated by that.
No,
I would say if you're a guy that's I want to start racing in motoamerica.
Yeah.
The best class I think to start in would be hooligans, because the bikes are reasonable, that you're not burning up a lot of tires. There's the field is stacked, but yet there's not it's not a crazy. You legitimately can do well.
Sure, but please buy 2 sets of wheels. I'm looking right at the camera.
Oh.
Please don't come to hooligans with 1 set of wheels. Have it, please, at least a spare front and a spare rear.
You know why they're called hooligans, right?
Right, and
It's for the riders, not the bikes.
Right, yeah.
Maybe 3 would be good, so you can get 1 set of reins as well. So you got a set of reins and you got a couple
backups.
backups. So.
Because you want to have one with if you need reins. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
for sure.
So
Yeah,
two sets
Right.
would be the minimum.
Right, because you'll see it if it starts raining. You should bring the camera over here, and you'll see it when they go. Oh, I only have 1 set of wheels. Can you please put a set of reins on? Oh, and my race is in 10 minutes.
Oh,
It's and
But
you know what, the guys knock it out.
Yeah,
I mean,
but the
it's-
beauty is
They do.
the beauty is with the rain tires you don't need warmers, so
Yeah.
you have all that extra time. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you both very
Yes.
much. And
Thank
if
you
you
guys.
need, thank you, of course. And then if you need a reason to buy Dunlop tires, they just re-signed the motoamerica deal. So they're the exclusive tire distributor for motoamerica until 2029. So if you're a club racer or a track day person in the US, you're going to have to use Dunlop at some point if you want to get serious about it. All right. So better to start now. Buy Dunlop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys are
Very
great.
good.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.